Hello and welcome back again. My name is NSXD and today, welcome to Chat Room. So this is a series where I like to talk about things that matter me. Matter me? Matter to me. God damn it. So, as you guys should know, about, just under a year now, I did a video talking about where I think all the ADs are currently standing. Now, I did say in that video that I would try doing them at the start of the season, and then in the middle of the season and at the end of the season. I think that's how I said I was going to do it, but I didn't. I didn't in the end doing that. I didn't do it in the middle of the season, and I'm kind of doing it at the end of the season, but instead of looking at it from last season's perspective, it's looking at this season's perspective for Season 7. Looking at all of the preseason stuff and just where a lot of the ADs are going to be standing. So let's just go run down them. I'm going to split them up in two. The first set is going to be all the ADs that are actually proper ADs. These are the ones played in the AD role. And the second section are ones that are off ADs but can still be played as an AD but isn't very effective. So starting off with Ashe. Ashe at the moment I think is in a really good spot. I do think that she did have a little bit of a too many nerfs onto her. Especially the Q nerf where she can no longer auto reset really did hurt Ashe. However, Ashe is still very impactful. Her ultimate is still absolutely amazing. So if you know how to play Ashe, she can still be a very powerful tool. Even though she was a little bit over nerfed in my opinion, but still really good. Next up we have Kaitlin. Kaitlin actually hasn't been receiving any changes, which I'm really surprised about. And she's still super lane dominant. Most ADs can't handle her in lane. She can just poke from a distance. She has insane damage. Her team fighting is just absolutely insane because of Headshot Hurricane. It's crazy. But she's actually been dropping down the tier lists, which is somewhat surprising in my opinion because she's still really good. But even though she's been dropping down, still great tool if you know how to play her. Personally, I still play her a ton because of how overpowered she is. And lane dominant, especially in this current meta where it's very lane dominant meta, but she's still good. We have Draven. Draven is actually a new star in the mix. He's actually been somewhat undervalued in the entire season. He wasn't that great. A lot of items just wasn't that impactful on him. However, now that the season is coming to a close, he's starting to catch up a little bit. He started off in Korea where people were building Death Dance on him. And he started going up the tiers as things gone on. And he's now at a state where he's actually really strong. So if you know how to play Draven, I recommend picking him up. He can easily dominate a lot of games if you know how to play him correctly. So if you do know how to play him, then pick him up. He's a super strong AD. Now next up we have Ezreal. Ezreal hasn't been touched at all for a very long time. He's still a super dominant AD. His two builds that you can go, which is either you go Iceborne Gauntlet and slow your enemies to death, or you go the amazing Triforce and you have insane damage. Both builds are still stupidly great. Personally, I prefer going the Triforce build. I think it's just a little bit better now after the nerfs that the Iceborne Gauntlet and that received. So I would gravitate that one a bit more because it does actually also give you a lot more power as well. But obviously it doesn't give you as easy kiting tools because it no longer slows the enemy. Unless if you go for, I think it's the Gauntlet or something. Actually, I can't remember the name. The hammer, the frozen hammer. I can't remember the actual naming of it. But you get that and it actually reapplies that slow again. But it costs more. It's not as cheap. So you kind of need to be snowballing a little bit harder for it. Because you are going to take a lot longer to scale. So there's that a little bit of a problem. Next up we have Jhin. Jhin I think at the moment is still the most strongest AD. Nothing to it. He's insane. After all the reworks of the items to try to bring down ADs a little bit, didn't work. Jhin's still stupidly overpowered with Ghost Blade, Dust Blade, and all that lot. Now I know loads of people have been saying that AD should no longer be building Ghost Blade. Well, I think that they are looking at it from the attack speed perspective, because as you know, a majority of ADs want the attack speed. However, two ADs that are still very dominant are still dominant with those items because they don't rely on the attack speed, and Jhin is one of them. The other one is actually Misfortune. Them two don't care about their attack speed. They only want the movement speed. They want to use the movement speed to get into position and then just let load their entire combo. You know, Misfortune wants to use the movement speed, get into position to ult. Same for Jhin. And, you know, so they don't care about that attack speed. It's nice. It gives them a little bit of help. But it wasn't their biggest thing that they wanted from the item. Next up, we have Jinx. Now, as I said earlier, loads of people have been going away from Kaitlin. That is because Jinx is now taking her spot, as Jinx and Kaitlin actually do pretty much the same thing, as they are both just super dominant ADs in the mid and late game. And a lot of the time, people can't handle these two, especially when they get fed. If a fed Kaitlin or a fed Jinx, you know, starts rolling, it is super hard to shut these two down because they have so much damage just from crit and hurricane and stuff like that. It is just insane because Kaitlin has the headshot hurricane effect, so she gets a headshot back extremely quickly. Whereas Jinx, she has AoE rockets, for fuck's sake. It is insane. So both of these champions are insane champs, and I'm super surprised that these two are not actually getting nerfed. Especially now that Jinx has taken over Kaitlin. And Kaitlin was already dominant, now Jinx is super dominant, so I'm surprised these two haven't received nerfs. Personally, I don't want nerfs to these two. I think they're in a really good spot because they can be abused, and if they do get a bit behind, they do take a really long time to start ramping up. But obviously, there are ADs that are a lot more problematic, like Jhin at the moment, and even Vayne, which we'll talk about in a minute, are a lot stronger than them. Next up, we have Calista. I don't know what to say about Calista. She's still fucking awful. She hasn't received any buffs. Riot haven't even slightly been touching her. Now, they have said that they are planning on doing a small buff, whether next patch or the following patch, or sometime soon. They have said that they're going to do a small buff to Calista. And they also said the same thing for Azir. And then later down the line, they are going to do a mini rework just to fix their kit up, fix their problems that they are having, and hopefully bring them fully back into the meta so people can start playing them fully once again. So it's a little bit hard to say what they're going to do for Calista, so we've just got to wait and see for her, really. Next up, we have Kog'Maw. I think Kog'Maw is an okay spot. His Triforce build is definitely really strong. However, he lacks a lot. Yes, he can be super strong, but he's easily dominated in lane. His mid and late game is strong, but nowhere near as strong as others, meaning that he's just in a spot like, if we look at Kog'Maw like a year ago, before the Marksman update, Kog'Maw was in a really good spot, because he could easily duel a lot of ADs, his mid and late game was stronger than the majority of ADs. However, after the Marksman update, all the ADs got super strong. They all got their powers buffed to be a lot stronger. Their mid and late games are a lot stronger now. And when they reverted Kog'Maw, they reverted Kog'Maw to the pre-rework. So everything was still super strong, but Kog'Maw was brought right down, back to how he was prior. And that's where he's still sitting. I think Kog'Maw needs a few more buffs. Not many, because he can be stupidly strong when ahead. But just those tiny little buffs for him in lane to allow him to come back up, to get him into the power level of all the other ADs, just so he's not lacking like he is right now. Next up, we have Lucien. Lucien is in a really good spot, but just like Ashe, I think the nerfs did hurt him a little bit too much. The fact that they nerfed a majority of Lucien's range really did hurt. But if you still know how to play Lucien, he can still be super lane dominant, but he can be dominated because of his range now. It's a lot like Vayne, per se, where Vayne has a little bit of problems dueling in lane, so she's always good. That's why she's only really good at mid and late game, because her early game is super weak. She's easily punishable because of her range difference. Now Lucien is the exact same, unfortunately, but if you know how to play Lucien really well, he can still take over games, he can still hard carry, he's still the same AD, so yeah. Next up, we have Misfortune. I think Misfortune right now is still the strongest AD when played correctly. If you know how to position really well on Misfortune and you know when and where to get your ultimate off, Misfortune is still the strongest AD. Your ultimate does insane damage with the 2 lethality damage items such as Dustblade and Ghostblade, and then you go for your Black Cleaver. That still can shred teams instantly. It's still stupidly strong. So yeah, Misfortune, still the strongest AD. Obviously, she can get out dueled, but she's not about dueling. She's just about team wiping because of her ulti. Next up, we have Sivir. Sivir was another of these cases where she got hit a little bit too hard with the nerfs, but Sivir's still good. Her ultimate's still good. She still has huge utility. Her team fighting's still okay with her AoE critting boomerangs and stuff. So she's able to do a lot of damage. But again, she did receive a little bit too many big nerfs, but still is able to be played at a really high level. Next up, we have Tristana. Now, Tristana's in the same case of Kaitlin and Jinx, where she also does the exact same thing. However, Tristana's the weakest out of the 3. Now, Tristana can still do a lot of damage. You can't deny that. I play a shit ton of Tristana still. She's still one of my favorite ADs. But she has a lot of problems at the moment where she's just not as lane dominant as Kaitlin. And her mid and late game AoE damage is just not as good as both of them put together. So Tristana is in a little bit of a weak state. I do think they should need to buff her up a little bit. And I have been hearing a little bit around in the community that Tristana may end up receiving another rework eventually, just because of the fact that her kit is no longer unique anymore. Because when they did rework her, they tried reworking her into the super tower destructive champion that will just blow up towers instantly if you let her get on it. But now that job's been taken away from Irelia. You now have the sieging potential from Kaitlin, and then you just have tower destruction from Jinx. So Tristana is just in the place where she's like sitting between the two, where she's not in a great spot, but she can still be played really highly. But if you want something with high damage, you would rather go for them, the other two, rather than the Tristana. So little buffs there and there may be needed. Maybe this rework, if it ever is actually a thing that Riot are planning, possibly. But I don't know. But either way, Tristana's in a good spot. You can play her really well if you know how to do it. Next up, we have Twitch. Twitch was these champions that loads of people thought that he was going to get his ass nerfed in the Assassin rework. But he didn't. He's still super dominant. His poison is super strong. He did hurt his team fighting a little bit, where he can no longer just completely assassinate someone stupidly quick in team fights with Ghostblade. Ghostblading in with his ambush, unloading straight into his ultimate is no longer the thing. But he can now go a crit route and still kind of do the same, but instead of just assassinate one target instantly, he now just blows up in AoE. He's again just a Jinx, pretty much, just with poison. And he's a rat. Yeah. Next up, we have Varus. Varus is one of these ADs that is not stupidly strong. Loads of people prefer playing mid because of his poke patterns. But if played in AD, he can still do a lot. Going Muramana and Ghostblade, using the Ghostblade to get into position to do a lot of poke damage is still stupidly strong. But again, if he does start falling behind, he can start not really doing much. It's the same likes of Jace, as both of them have the same type of play style where they want to poke, and then when the poke is done, they can just go in full ham and destroy everything. But if they get behind, they're kind of useless. Now, I have talked about her earlier on, Vayne. Vayne is in a really great spot. She's one of the strongest just auto-attacking ADs. She's overtaken Jhin. She's overtaken Jinx. Vayne is the number 1 AD if you know how to play her correctly. She has 3 builds that she can go. She has a part crit, part lifesteal build. She has her full crit build, where she pretty much just goes 100% crit. And she also has a lethality build, which is not that great in my opinion. I don't like it. It's a little bit iffy, but it can do a load of damage if you know how to play it. Obviously, some of the old builds from last season still work, such as the Rage Blade build, which isn't great in my opinion, but it's still a possibility. And there's a few other builds you can go. There's still the Hurricane build and stuff like that still work, but I'd say going the 3 crit items with 2 attack speed, Hurricane, and then going a bit of lifesteal, still the best build in my opinion. It's great, it does a shit ton of damage, and you are nearly impossible to kill. So that's all of the actual ADs. Now we'll start talking about the off ADs. Starting off with Corki. Personally, I think Corki is a really good AD when playing an AD. Now, I know loads of people prefer him mid lane, but if you actually take the mid lane build and put him into AD, he still does a lot of damage, and he can easily carry teams. And I have done so with this Corki. Corki has a shit ton of damage, he's really hard to kill because of his E, he shreds tanks. So, possibly if this meta does turn into a tank meta, Corki can do a lot because of his E. Obviously, he's not great in the mid, towards the late game because of the fact that he is mixed damage. And because he's mixed damage, as soon as a tank gets a bit of arm and magic resist, his damage just fucking falls off a pissing cliff. But Corki can do a lot early on and easily just shred and win games. Next up, we have Graves. Graves, he's a jungler. He's still shit in AD. The fact that his bullets can't go move minions still harms him an absolute bunch. So unless the right changes that, I'll never expect to see Graves really back in AD. Next, we have Kindred. Kindred is just pretty much the exact same. But unlike the fact that she can't shoot for minions, it's the fact that Kindred is so built around the jungle that her damage is stupidly low early game. She gets abused. She needs those stacks to even be irrelevant. So unless if you can build a very heavy kill lane and constantly get your jungler in to gank for you, then possibly taking Kindred in AD is not a good option. Now, personally, I still like taking Kindred as an AD, but I will only do so if my support is like along the lines of Ileona, and I'm playing with a pre-made jungler who would constantly be ganking for me, so I can make sure I get those stacks early on, just so I can keep on the snowballing effect and still win games off of it. So unless you have that, don't bother playing Kindred, it's not that great. Next up, we have Quinn. Quinn is a roaming god, but you're playing AD carry, and AD carry can't really roam that well. Because you need to farm and farm. Pretty much. You need to constantly be farming. Mid lane and top lane are the only 2 roles that can really roam effectively. For AD carry, it's not that great because your items cost a lot more than most other champions. So you need to stay in that bot lane, get that farm rolling in, and just try to dominate the other AD to make sure you're ahead so you can keep on applying the pressure in the mid and late game. And going on from that, Quinn is also somewhat of an assassin, which, unless if you have a lot of damage and you can blow up people instantly, is not great for AD. This is where Vayne and Twitch actually work in AD because they can destroy entire teams really easily, whereas Quinn, she's only really good at a assassination of a one target, which for an AD carry is not a good tool. It's better for mid laners, better for top laners, somewhat even better for junglers to have, just not AD. But if you know how to play the Quinn, you can still do it in AD, it's just not great. Next up, we have Urgot. Again, what can I say about Urgot? The only thing I can really say about Urgot, at least he's stronger than fucking Calista. That's the only good thing you can say about Urgot. He's still stupidly weak. Obviously, he's great into assassins such as Zed because of his poker's insane. Assassins can't really kill you because of your W shield and your ultimate, so it just cancels a lot of the damage out. So possibly play him into assassins, maybe. But then again, if you was going to play him to an assassin, I would rather play the likes of a fucking Tristana or a Lucien who can dodge the damage anyway. So, still okay, I guess, but not great. So there you guys go. That is all of the assassins. All the assassins? No, that's all of the ADs in this current patch. A lot of them are good. I wouldn't say there's like really bad ADs, really, in this patch. I think the only ones that are really, really bad are, as I said, Ogre and Calista. But others that would really stand out as being a little bit underpowered would be the likes of Kog'Maw and majority of the off ADs. But other than that, they're all in good spots. I think they are all capable of being really strong. I think some of them just need like tiny, tiny buffs to them. Others need a little bit of nerfs, such as Jhin, Misfortune, even Jinx, Kaitlin, and Vayne. I think these guys need like a little bit of nerfing. But other than that, they are all great. They are all stupidly strong. All ADs can work, which is really surprising. But other than that, guys, hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Make sure to do all the normal YouTubey stuff. Leave in the comments down below what you think on these current ADs. Do you think some of them are actually weaker or stronger than others? And possibly just give your thoughts and opinions down below. Other than that, guys, hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Till then, everyone, peace out.